2 years ago, in a room with Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef, Tim Montgomery asked the question, "Are you sure that you want me? Because I was a pain in the backside for the Tories, and I'll be a pain in the backside for you." And Farage, according to Montgomery, said something like, "Good, I've got too many yes men around me telling me what I want to hear." This week, Reform suspended him for telling them things they didn't want to hear. And then, because this is Reform, they told him to keep the suspension private, and yet it was all over Guido Fawkes within hours. Not leaked by him, he says, on the Bible. So a party that suspends you for saying things in public couldn't keep its own disciplinary letter out of public. And now he's done 2 long interviews in 48 hours. One with the Spectator, one with the Telegraph Daily Tea. And there's a moment in the Spectator one where he says the quiet part out loud about Farage's single biggest weakness. So that's coming. You need to stay with me on that. So, quick context, then, because I know some of you asking who the hell this bloke is. Montgomery founded Conservative Home, the site where the Tory grassroots have argued on for 2 decades. He helped set up the Centre for Social Justice with Ian Duncan Smith. Serious Tory pedigree. And in late 2024, with Reform climbing in the polls and the Tories left flat on their back, he jumped ship. Bad timing, you say, or excellent timing, if you were looking to be the one on the winning side. He's honest about that bit, at least.
When I joined Reform, we were still behind in the opinion polls, and I thought this parliament would be a battle for, supremacy on the right. It clearly partly is that, but I didn't really expect it necessarily to be for Reform to be a contender for government.
So he bet on a horse when it was mid-race, and now that horse has kicked him. I mean, he's appealing, but he doesn't sound very hopeful.
I'm not optimistic my appeal is going to succeed.
Right.
I'm going to try.
Now, why was he suspended? Well, he says HQ sent him a list, 5 or 6 things over 2 years, and the one he chose to share on air is, well, it's quite honestly my favourite. When Zia Youssef was demanding Zach Polanski be taken into police custody for sharing a picture of a t-shirt, Montgomery said that the police were right not to, and that a party of free speech should probably behave like one.
I said I thought the police made the right decision not retaining Zach Polanski in custody. I thought Zach Polanski had made an error of judgment. He'd been exposed in public as a fool, and that was punishment enough. And a party of free speech needed to adhere to be a party of free speech. Apparently, that was one of my sins.
Free speech party suspends member for defending free speech. I mean, you can't make this up, can you? I've read that sentence 4 or 5 times, and it just doesn't get any less stupid. And who exactly suspended him? And here's where it gets properly weird. He messaged Farage to ask.
I messaged Nigel and said, did he know? I'm not going to say everything that has happened in correspondence, but Nigel said he did not know about the suspension. So it was taken by Reform HQ, whatever Reform HQ might mean.
Whatever Reform HQ might mean, from a man who's been inside it for 2 years, the leader didn't know. Other senior figures, he says, didn't know either and have messaged him on, support. So a decision to suspend one of the party's most visible members was taken by someone, and the man whose face is on every leaflet only found out afterwards? Tim Stanley asked the only question that really matters.
He doesn't seem to have disciplined Zia. Does he run this party?
Because that's the comparison. Youssef called Ben Wallace, a former defence secretary, a traitor. Farage said publicly that he'd gone a bit far.
Do you think Ben Wallace, former defence secretary, put on the uniform, served in a violent for his country, is he a traitor?
That's too strong.
I should give him a ticket off. Do you encourage him to delete that tweet?
I'll speak to him. But it's, yeah.
The tweet is still up. There's no suspension. Montgomery defends Green MP's rights not to be arrested over a t-shirt, and whoa, that's it. He's out. So the rule seems to be attack outward as hard as you like, question inward, and you're gone. Which is a perfectly coherent rule. It's just the rule of a fan club and not a government in waiting. Montgomery had a name for this problem, and yeah, it's Mohammed Zia Youssef.
There are a lot of people who are on no speaking terms with Zia, and it's nearly always Zia who initiates this. It needs to end. You cannot behave like a child in politics.
He says that Youssef didn't speak to him for 3 months after he helped bring Robert Jenrick across. He says nearly every senior colleague worries about Youssef's Twitter habit and his freelancing on policy. And then he says the bit that must have gone down beautifully in Reform HQ.
Zia Yusuf's behaviour of making our core vote even more committed, but people who don't like us even more imposed, doesn't make any sense if you want to win a general election. So I try and analyse his behaviour and think, well, what would account for how he behaves? And I think the best explanation is, well, the only explanation I can is that he wants to succeed Nigel Farage, because you wouldn't behave the way that he behaves if winning a general election was your number one priority.
So Reform's chairman turned Doge man is, per one of his own colleagues, running for a job that isn't vacant, in public, while the current occupant hasn't got a chief of staff. That's the other thing on Montgomery's list, by the way. No chief of staff, no regular meetings with his own MPs, nobody senior in charge of picking candidates for the seats that they need to actually form a government. His reaction to the chief of staff bit was roughly mine.
And I'm going to have to bring you up on he's got no chief of staff. I find that extraordinary. Every political leader needs someone who is directly responsible to them and is their gatekeeper, and whose life is based around shielding and protecting and advising them.
To be fair, he has gatekeepers.
He has gatekeepers,
but you need one. The point of the chief of staff is they are one.
Yeah.
And so now this brings us to the payoff, because Montgomery says that he raised something with Farage repeatedly in private for months and it wasn't dealt with. And it's the same thing that you and I have watched in every interview since the hard-won money surfaced.
But what he cannot do is, if it's about him, his personal circumstances, his personal finances, particularly if he's interviewed by a woman, he's not good. And I said, you need to prepare for these interviews. You can't just appear on television and say, I want to buy Ferraris.
Particularly if he was interviewed by a woman. Said that by a Reform loyalist about his own leader, and it lands harder because Montgomery isn't a hostile witness. He calls Farage the best media performance of the last 20 years in this very same breath. This is a fan describing the one thing that the man can't do. And he even goes further on the Daily Tea podcast.
Reform has struggled more than anything else because of this 5 million question. Nigel has been reluctant to do media in the way that he has done in the past because this question keeps coming up. And then when he answers the question, he appears rattled. Now, this is from someone who's probably the best media...
Sorry, Nick, you're confusing two things. One is the money comes in, the other is where it goes, right? I can do with it as I wish, but I know myself what it's for.
How much has been spent?
I bought a cup of coffee this morning. Was that from that money or from what I earned from GB News? Or these are ridiculous questions.
Reform has struggled more than anything else because of the 5 million. That's the sentence I'd have been accused of bias for writing, and yet now a direct quote from inside the tent. And Montgomery's proposed fix was to lock Farage in a room and have colleagues fire hostile questions at him until he stops saying stupid stuff, like spending it on Ferraris, which is, yeah, I suppose it's a good idea, and apparently that's the sort of idea that gets you suspended. There's one more, and it's one of the things that should worry people who actually vote for these lot. Stanley points out that Reform's own welfare announcement, the one about reviewing PIP, the one that we covered in the last video, would actually hit Clacton harder than nearly anywhere else in the country.
Well, just to say, this is why Clacton, which Nigel won decisively, isn't representative of the country. It just isn't.
No.
It's unusually old. Yeah. It has relatively high levels of economic disengagement, and it has the second highest percentage of PIP claimants in the east of England. It has a very high percentage of people who are disabled, and one of its largest local employers is social care, much of which is dependent upon immigrants. So it's not like Tunbridge Wells or Guildford or the other kind of seats that you need to win. But not just that. Some reform policies, such as the welfare policy that was rolled out yesterday, are going to hit places like Clacton hardest because they're about a review of PIP claimants. And Clacton has a very high number of PIP claimants.
Farage's own seat, the second highest PIP claimant rate in the east of England, according to the panel, and yet the party's flagship policy of the week is a PIP review. If you wanted to design a policy to hurt the exact people who just re-elected him, well, you'd struggle to improve on it. So where does Montgomery go from here? He said that he'll still pick Reform over the Tories today, and he also says that he could easily vote for Kemi Badenoch. And there's hardly been a day where he hasn't wondered whether joining was a mistake. He's wanted nothing, he says. No seat, no job. He was just going to launch a website called 900 Days about the time left to prepare for government. That's on hold now, which is a shame because Reform have made pretty clear how they'd like to spend the 900 days. Obviously, I keep watching this car crash, so you don't have to. And so please subscribe if you want a front row seat to it. And memberships are there as well if you'd like to support me and the channel too. Now, the thing is that every party has rows, but this is a party whose entire pitch is that it says what others won't, run by people who can't hear one of their own say what they'd rather not. Farage asked for internal dissent. He got some. And HQ, whatever that means, decided that the problem was the dissenter. If that's how they run a party of, well, I should have looked this up, 5, 6, 7 MPs, then God help us if they ever get into power and have to have cabinet meetings. And to see what the PIP thing is all about and how they're looking to take away your benefits, well, you need to watch the video that's on screen now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.